I didn't go back to school for my master's to find a different job. I did it to enhance what I do.
Right.
So my whole thing was HR and organizational development will help me no matter what leadership or management role I'm in.
I love
And it
that.
has tremendously. At different times, I've been kind of that resource of, I know you have some HR background or organizational development background.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more personal for me than it wasn't just professional. It was like, I want to like what I'm learning.
Right. And in what ways has I think you acknowledged it to some extent, but has the EMU MSHROD degree helped you in your career?
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, of course, it looks good on a resume.
Mm-hmm.
So it, like when Motor was looking to hire, I mean, I found this out afterwards, they were hiring at the manager level with the hopes of someone they could develop and was ready to develop into like a director. Um, and having a master's definitely was helpful there. And then in the subject matter that it was in. Um, but along with that is, I do hiring, discipline, all the things that managers do, and having that background on the HR side is helpful to go, I know how to navigate this, because a lot of managers don't have that.
Right.
Even when we get together as a management group, often we have to kind of educate some on, yeah, you can't say that, or you
Right.
can't handle it that way.
Right.
Um, and so that's been really helpful. And then just understanding organizational development has helped a lot of times, especially with change management, things like that. And that's just that helps on a regular
Yeah.
basis.
Because change is the only constant these days, right?
Yes, especially living through COVID and then
Yes.
everything that's happened since then.
Yeah. What bits of advice would you have for EMU students?
This is going to sound probably a little cliche or old fashioned, but it's like just be there, like be in the moment. So even though you might be in a class that you go, oh, I hate that I have to take this class. What am I going to do with this? Or I'm not interested in this. You can always learn something.
Yes.
And I'll give an example of that. Years ago, I attended Henry Ford
Hmm.
Community College.
Hmm.
And I had to take an elective and I picked a music appreciation class. I'm not a music person. I turn on the radio in my car. I rarely buy music. I don't go to concerts very often. So it's just kind of like, yeah, it'll be interesting. But I wasn't, to this day, I still remember things from that. I
Yeah.
think because I knew so little. And so I'll hear a song and go, those are winds or those are strings. And it's all due back to that class that I had no interest in taking, but I had to take one.
Hmm.
And it's also through the different classes I had at EMU, just different nuggets that I've taken away from the different classes. Um, and actually, Dr. Pandy, I think this was your class because I'm trying to remember because it wasn't it law that I took with you. Was it
No,
law?
no, you took the basic HR class with me, and
Okay, that's right. Because so there was it was a online one um, that we had to know the law, learn the laws,
Right.
all the regulations. And because we did it again and again and again, so much of that has stuck with me. And
Hmm.
so I would just say for students, one of the big things is don't just blow them off as I need
Yeah.
to get this one done.
Right.
There's something you're going to take away if you put that effort in.
I love that. And you said that networking has just been a pivotal part of your career.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm on the leadership board for women in auto care,
Mm.
and it has changed my life. That sounds extreme, but other women have said the same thing. So I went to a leadership conference in 2022, and it was, let's see, that one was in Indiana. It was Indianapolis, that one. And I was just like, how do I get involved with this group? This group is amazing with a couple hundred women in aftermarket. Um, I left there so energized and feeling so empowered. And then I was like, I want to keep this going. So I actually reached out to ones before I left there and said, if you're in Michigan and you want to keep this energy going, let's stay connected. And then I got more and more involved, and that's when I've been, chosen to be on the board, which my term runs out the end of this year. But it's also helped bring people to Motor. So I often get people reaching out that I've networked and met through Women in Auto Care to say, hey, I see you have like we have this director marketing position. We've had a couple of VP positions. Actually, one of the VP positions was filled by somebody that I met through Women in Auto Care. I didn't make that happen, but
Right.
she connected with me and in the meantime said, hey, I'm applying for that. And then I can go back and say, hey, I know Tiffany. This is what I know of her.
Right.
So it's not only helped me, it's helped our business.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, okay, Susan says a lot of great things about motor. I'm interested in learning more about motor.
Yes.
So that's the other piece. Not everybody feels like that's part of their networking, that it's about helping their organization. I do. I'm so proud to work there, and I'm all about, you want to talk about motor, I'll talk about it. And it's also given me a lot of confidence, in that area, because I don't have the automotive knowledge.
Right.
So
Right.
being in those conversations, knowing I have, more resources, if I go, I don't know anything about that, but there's plenty of other resources I could reach out to.
Yeah.
And then, being on stage, speaking, in large groups, which I've always been pretty comfortable with. That's not been a struggle, but the more you do it, the better you get and the more comfortable you are.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's where a lot of the networking. And then there's other things. Just, I had a great manager at Thomson Reuters that was really great at connecting with people
Mhm.
and the networking piece. And I always wanted to be like that, because she was really good with either her direct reports, but others in the business, especially individual contributors. And I was never that way. I was kind of, you go to work, you get a job done. I wasn't one of the touchy feely, warm and fuzzy,
Right.
but I was like, she gets results. And people are always happy to see her. And she always remembers it's their birthday or their kid had soccer on Sunday. So I actually years ago started writing things down. So if on Fridays, I said, oh, what are you doing this weekend? And they said, oh, my son has his first soccer game on Sunday. I would go back and write down, Jerry's son has his first soccer game on Sunday, because I wouldn't have remembered that before.
Right.
And then on Monday, I'd see that and make sure I reached out and said, hey, Jerry, by the way, how was your son's soccer game? And now I don't have to do as much of the writing it down. But that was another thing that helps with the networking that also got me more involved in the networking.
Absolutely. And what was Jerry like when you asked him that question?
Of course, appreciative that I remembered,
Yeah.
and that's what I see. It's just like, wow, especially if it's someone you don't know well.
Right.
If it's someone on your team and they're kind of almost expecting it, but if it's someone you just see in passing, so it's that whole, she remembered.
Right. Right. Oh my goodness. Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years?
Director at Motor.
Okay.
So one of my goals is we handle all the support, but we have a couple key customers that's always been handled by individual teams. And since I've been there, and it's 4 years this month, I've said, we really need to get all of customer support, customer service, all of that kind of activity in one area. And my manager agrees,
Yeah, that
because
makes sense.
we continue to improve, implement best practices, work on, customer experience. And those ones are doing it the way they've always done it.
Mm.
So that's an area I'm working very strongly on to say, bring some of those people to my team. Let's get us being consistent, no matter which customer we're working with.
Right.
There is one, our largest customer, that I don't know if that'll happen, because that's a big part of Motor, is that customer. And
Mhm.
so it's kind of like you don't rock the boat with it, but I'm
Right.
still,
Right.
I keep planting the seed.
Right.
We can then be sharing best practices. We could be making sure we're consistent. I can learn from them. They can learn from me. So when I say that, it's not just about the title. It's continuing to be able to improve our customer experience. It's continuing for me to grow. That's the one thing, as long as the challenges are there for me to continue to grow, that's what I'm interested in. I just don't see me ever getting to the point where just on cruise control. It's just not, it doesn't satisfy me.
Yeah. Oh my
So
goodness.
some say I could retire, in 5 years or so. I'm like, retire? I don't even, I honestly figure I'll be working for at least another 10 years, as long as I can, health wise or longer.
Right. Right. That's awesome. It was so nice to meet you. Is there any other words of wisdom you want to share with our students or alum?
Go to China,
Oh, and why do you say that?
because I went with the program.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, as a working adult, like I could never do, you know, a study abroad program. And I remember when Jean was talking about it, came and talked to like our one class. And I'm like, it's 2 weeks. That's doable. I went home and I said to my husband, there is a program that you can go to 2 weeks to China to study abroad. I go, I want to do that. And I didn't know if it was competitive. And I'm like, I don't know what it takes to get accepted for that. And now I learn it's more, you know, generally I think most that apply can go because the numbers aren't that large. But and that was another, I'm gonna say another life-changing thing that just opened because I haven't traveled internationally.
Hmm.
Um and just getting out there and the culture, and I enjoyed the people part of it the most
Yeah.
was, you know, just getting outside of the group we were with, because I got some feedback that I should mingle more with the group we were with, but I actually really enjoyed more meeting the people there.
Hmm.
Like got invited from a Korean student to go to the Korean restaurant, you know, to have lunch.
Mhm.
Like I wasn't with any of them in our cohort, but I enjoyed that more because like I can mingle with those people all the time,
Right, right.
you know, or passing some on the street. And the part I loved is, especially if you said hello in Chinese or Mandarin or whatever it was, watching their faces light up.
Yeah.
So it's just a different experience that you can't get without traveling.
And I tell students, a lot of times I'll ask them how many of you have traveled internationally. And now it's getting to be more and more, right? But I for those who haven't traveled internationally, I'm like, you just need to go to another country, besides Canada and Mexico, right? And just, the air is different, right? I mean, the culture is so different. There are little nuances and things like that. And I think it's really good for Americans to get out of their bubble.
Yeah, and especially staying in the dorms,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you know, being on campus, and even, you know, obviously we didn't spend class time. That's not what we did when we were there, which makes total sense a little bit.
yeah.
But just the places we visited, you know, like going to the which one was it? Boeing? No, it was one of the other aircraft manufacturers, going to their plant,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
going to museums, you know, just yeah, things that you can't learn in a classroom.
Yeah.